My team lead took credit for a year's worth of my work, presenting it with my name deleted from every slide. When I whispered, "This is my project," he grinned and said, "What are you going to do? Cry about it?" So I waited until his big presentation to investors, and sent them the real files with timestamps. Mid-speech, his voice cracked as the CEO stood up and asked, "Then why is her name on every single original document?" I used to believe that if you worked hard, kept your head down, and did your job well, people would notice. I really believed that. I don't anymore. I work for a mid-sized tech firm based in Cincinnati, Ohio. We're not some flashy Silicon Valley startup, but we do big things, mostly in predictive maintenance software for industrial clients. Think factory machines, HVAC systems, turbines, anything that costs a fortune to fix when it breaks. Our software helps prevent those breakdowns. I'm 32. My name's Hannah Greer. I was hired as a data systems analyst 2 years ago. I was the only woman on the team of 8. All the men were older. Most of them had worked at the company for years. I was the new blood, the fresh mind. That's what the CTO called me in my first meeting. At first, things were okay. Not great, but manageable. My ideas got overlooked, my emails were sometimes ignored, and a few of the guys made dumb jokes when I stayed late or brought up code they didn't understand. But I chalked it up to company culture. I didn't want to rock the boat. Then came the project. The project that would become the whole center of this story. The one I built from scratch, alone. Our company had started exploring how to expand predictive models across multi-site facilities. Basically, they wanted a framework that could adapt machine learning models to different factory conditions without rebuilding the entire thing each time. It was a big deal. Nobody else had nailed it in a way that scaled easily. So when our manager said they needed someone to experiment with it, I jumped at the chance. It was supposed to be a side project. But I knew this was it, my chance to prove I wasn't just some background contributor. I worked on it for over a year. Nights. Weekends. I skipped trips home. Skipped dates. I coded the initial algorithm myself, trained and tuned the models, even pulled in my own datasets to stress test everything. I made it modular, scalable, and cost-efficient. I also built a full presentation, visualizations, and documentation. I had that entire system running like a damn machine. Then I made one mistake. I shared the presentation file with my team lead. Paul Knight, 44, divorced twice, always had something to say about young people not having patience or earning their keep. He wasn't mean, just smug. Always wore button-ups like he was about to film a TED Talk, even though he mostly delegated and played middleman. His coding knowledge? Probably ended in 2010. When he asked to review my deck, I sent it, assuming he'd give feedback. That's what team leads are supposed to do, right? 2 days later, he booked a meeting with our department director, without me. I only found out because someone forwarded the invite by accident. I asked him about it. He said he was just clarifying the technicals and that I'd be looped in when needed. I tried not to panic. Maybe he was smoothing the path. Maybe this was how it worked. Then came the quarterly summit. We rent out a conference space downtown for these things. It's a big deal, CEO flies in, VPs attend, even some partners and potential investors. Everyone puts on their best face. And this year, Paul was presenting our department's big highlight. My project. I showed up early, sat in the back row. I wore my nicest blouse, put my hair up. I told myself maybe I'd be invited on stage, or at least introduced. At minimum, I figured my name would be on the title slide. It had to be. It wasn't. Instead, it read, Optimizing Predictive Maintenance in Multi-Site Facilities, presented by Paul Knight, Senior Lead Systems Analyst. I stared at the screen. My chest felt cold. He walked on stage with a smile, as if this was just another regular day. Slide after slide, my graphs, my layouts, my results, just kept coming. He even used a joke I had put in the speaker notes, word for word. Not once. Not a single time. Did he say my name? During the first break, I followed him toward the coffee table. I didn't care who was around. I leaned in and whispered, "This is my project." He looked me dead in the eyes. Grinned. And said, "What are you going to do? Cry about it?" Then he walked away. I stood there for a minute. My fists clenched. My eyes burned, but not with tears, just raw fury. Humiliation. I'd spent a year building something important, and he was standing on stage lying about it to the entire executive staff. I wanted to scream. I wanted to go to the CEO right then. But I didn't. Instead, I went home. I stayed up that night backing up everything, Git logs with timestamps, email threads, slide versions, every code commit. Each file showed my authorship, my edits, my fingerprints. The proof was solid. But I didn't send it. Not yet. I waited. Because Paul was working on something even bigger. He'd been prepping a pitch to a group of private equity investors out of New York. Our company was looking for Series C funding, and this project was the crown jewel. The investor meeting was scheduled for March 19, 10 a.m. sharp. That date burned itself into my memory. The week before, Paul was strutting around the office like he was already VP. He dropped comments like, "Big things are coming, and some of us are really stepping up lately." He even had the nerve to tell me to be a team player and keep supporting the vision. My vision. I waited until 9:55 a.m. on March 19. Then I opened a fresh email draft. To William Howard, CEO, CC, CTO, CFO, Investor Rep 1, Investor Rep 2 Subject, Urgent, Authorship and Original Files of Predictive Project Body. Dear Mr. Howard, I want to clarify a serious issue regarding today's presentation. The predictive model and accompanying materials being presented were developed entirely by me over the last year. Attached is a folder with original files, timestamped code, email threads, and presentations demonstrating sole authorship. I've remained quiet out of respect for team structure, but I can no longer allow my work to be misrepresented. Best, Hannah Greer. I hit send at 9:58 a.m. I wasn't in the room, but I didn't have to be. My phone lit up minutes later. A text from Devin. Did you just drop a bomb? Howard stopped the meeting mid-sentence. Then, Paul's face is gray. Like literally gray. Then another, Howard just asked him, then why is her name on every single original document? Out loud. In front of everyone. I sat at my desk, heart pounding. I didn't know what would happen next. But I knew the silence was over. After that day, the air in the office changed. The meeting ended early. Real early. No lunch. No handshakes. Paul didn't even come back upstairs. Just disappeared after the CEO called him out in front of everyone. Nobody said anything directly to me that day. No congratulations. No apologies. Just a weird quiet. Like people weren't sure whether to treat me like a hero or a threat. I got a calendar invite from HR that afternoon. The subject was vague, meeting with HR and executive team, 9:30 a.m. tomorrow. I barely slept that night. I wasn't sure if I was getting rewarded or fired. I sat in my kitchen staring at a blank wall for hours, thinking about how fast everything had turned. The next morning, I walked into the 14th floor boardroom where all the big talks happen. Inside were Mr. Howard, our CEO, the CFO, one of the lawyers, and someone from HR. The CTO was remote but patched in by video. They had the folder I sent them up on the projector. Mr. Howard didn't waste time. He looked me in the eye and said, "I owe you an apology." Then he told me that what Paul did wasn't just wrong, it was a breach of policy. He lied to investors. He falsified authorship records. If they hadn't caught it in time, it could have hurt the entire deal. I nodded but didn't say much. I was still half numb. They offered me the official title of lead analyst on the spot, with a raise and back pay. They also said they wanted me to work with the investor relations team moving forward. It felt like justice. But I wasn't celebrating. Because Paul wasn't done. 2 days later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. When I listened, I froze. It was Paul. Hannah. I hope you're happy. You just destroyed my career. You couldn't have just come to me, huh? Had to go nuclear. Real professional. I hope it was worth it. Then he hung up. I saved the voicemail. At first I thought he was just angry. Bitter. But things started getting weird. A week later, one of my GitHub repos was flagged for copyright violation. Turned out someone tried to report my predictive code as stolen. I had to go through an appeal process. It took days, but I cleared it. Then I started noticing some of my LinkedIn connections were acting strange. One sent me a message saying they heard I got caught stealing IP. Another asked if I had really been demoted. Rumors. Lies. All of it. I tracked it down. Paul had been calling around. Other firms, mutual connections, even clients. Spreading stories. Saying I'd hacked into his files. Claimed I stole his presentation. Told people I was manipulative, unstable, and had emotional issues. He was trying to poison my name. At first I thought about letting it go. I had my promotion. I had the truth. But the more I saw him try to spin the story, the more I knew I had to act again. Quietly. Carefully. So I started documenting everything. Screenshots of posts. Messages. Recorded voicemails. Tracked what companies he was contacting. One of the engineers, Marcos, still talks to me. He quietly sent me a Slack message saying Paul had tried to call him, too. Then I had an idea. I looked up the investor group from New York, the ones Paul had pitched to before I exposed him. I figured they'd dropped him after what happened. But I wasn't sure if they knew why. So I set up a private Zoom meeting with their director of technology. I told her everything. What Paul did, what happened in the meeting, and how he was now spreading false claims. I showed her the proof. She was shocked. Then she got quiet. She said, "That makes sense." He reached out again last week. Tried to pitch a new model he claimed he'd been developing. Sounded awfully familiar. Familiar? It was familiar. It was mine. That bastard was still trying to sell my system. Just with a new name slapped on top. I didn't say anything to the company yet. I wanted to build a case they couldn't ignore. I started gathering everything. Dates. Logs. Calls. I even pulled metadata from some of the code samples I found linked to Paul's personal consulting site. They matched mine. Same structure. Same architecture. Same errors in the comments. This wasn't over. He hadn't just stolen my work once. He was trying to do it again. Only this time, he was doing it on his own. No one to hide behind. And I wasn't going to just defend myself. I was going to make sure he never touched another pitch deck ever again. At this point, I knew Paul wasn't just some arrogant manager who got caught. He was a liar who didn't know when to stop. And he was getting desperate. That made him dangerous. The moment I heard he was trying to pitch my system under a new name, something clicked. He wasn't giving up, he was betting that no one would dig too deep. That the investors wouldn't care where the idea came from as long as it looked shiny. He was wrong. I got to work. I started tracking everything that touched my system, from the original code commits, to my version history, to Slack conversations with teammates about the architecture. But that wasn't enough. I wanted something that would tie his new pitch directly back to my old work. Something undeniable. Then I remembered something. In the earliest version of the project, when I was first testing the model, I used a placeholder label in the database queries. I had typed Greer_dev01 into the initial script. It was just to keep versions separated on my end. I'd updated it in the final version, but I knew if he had copied my old files, he might have left it in. I reached out to the investor tech director again. I asked, "Do you still have the sample files he sent during his second pitch?" She was hesitant but said yes. Only because we hadn't deleted them yet. She emailed them over, encrypted, private link, one-time access. I opened the files. And there it was. In the core predictive logic script, near the top, SQL copy edit where machine_ID equals Greer_dev01 my placeholder. My fingerprint. It was like he'd signed the theft in ink. I didn't rush to legal or HR. Not yet. Instead, I contacted someone else. A woman named Trina who used to work at our company before me. I'd heard her name before. She left after a dispute with management, which now made me wonder. I found her on LinkedIn and sent a message. She responded in an hour. When we talked, I kept it simple. Did Paul ever take credit for your work? There was a pause. Then she said, he took my patent idea and gave it to corporate under his name. I couldn't fight it. I didn't know how. That was all I needed to hear. This wasn't the first time Paul had pulled this crap. He'd just never been caught with proof. Or maybe nobody had the nerve, or the leverage, to fight him. Until now. I brought it all to our legal team. I didn't email. I walked in. I sat down with our in-house counsel and showed them everything, the timestamped folders, the copied code, the leftover dev tag, and Paul's new startup website that was clearly using my system's structure. I even played them the voicemail. They were stunned. They asked if I wanted to file a formal complaint. I said, no. I want the company to file it. This wasn't a personal matter anymore. Paul was violating non-compete terms. He was trying to sell proprietary work built on company time, with company resources, and he was slandering me along the way. It was corporate theft. Our legal rep nodded slowly and said, all right. We'll take it from here. That same week, something unexpected happened. I got called into another meeting. This time with the CTO, Mr. Reese. He sat across from me and said, I want to offer you something else. I didn't know what to expect. I thought maybe they wanted me to lead a new team. Maybe another bonus. Instead, he said, we'd like you to help us design a new internal system for tracking IP ownership. We don't want what happened to you to happen again. And frankly, we need someone who understands where the gaps are. I agreed. Of course I agreed. I wasn't just fixing what Paul broke. I was changing the system that let him do it. And Paul? He didn't know what was coming next. Because while the company launched their investigation and started preparing legal action, I started reaching out to every investor, client, and tech group I knew he'd contacted. One by one. All backed with evidence. I wasn't just protecting my name. I was putting his on a blacklist he wouldn't see coming. It didn't take long for things to unravel, for Paul, I mean. Our legal team filed a formal cease and desist against him and his so-called consulting firm he was trying to spin up on the side. They also reported him for intellectual property theft under our state's trade secret laws. But that was just the start. The real hammer dropped when the company went straight to every investor group he'd contacted. They sent official letters, loaded with side-by-side comparisons of my original code and the files Paul pitched as his own. They attached timelines, Slack threads, file histories, and even metadata screenshots. He wasn't just blacklisted. He was exposed. One of the investors forwarded me a reply Paul sent after they confronted him. I shouldn't have seen it, but I did. It said, "This is all a misunderstanding. That system was a team effort and she misunderstood the scope of collaboration." I was the lead and had sign-off rights. She's overreacting. Overreacting. He was still acting like I'd just gotten emotional. Still trying to spin it as a miscommunication. Still trying to drag my name down to justify his theft. That's when I stopped holding back. I posted the truth online. I didn't use company files. I didn't break NDA. I stayed just within the lines. I wrote a public blog post on Medium called, "The Project That Wasn't Mine," until I proved it was. I wrote about what it feels like to build something from the ground up and watch someone else stand in the spotlight. I told the story, fact by fact, using only what was already public knowledge. I blurred names. But people figured it out. The post exploded. People shared it. Tech forums picked it up. It got cross-posted to LinkedIn, Hacker News, and even Reddit. I wasn't the only one who'd been in my position, and it hit a nerve. 3 other women, all former co-workers of Paul's, emailed me. One of them said she cried reading it. Another said, "He did the same thing to me with our logistics project in 2019. I walked away because I thought no one would believe me. I believed them. I sent their names, confidentially, to our legal team. They reached out. Quietly. Carefully. One of them had saved old backups. That helped the case. A lot. At this point, it was like watching the ground fall out from under him in slow motion. The last time I saw Paul was at the courthouse. Yes. He tried to sue me. He filed a defamation lawsuit in county court. Said I'd ruined his reputation, caused him financial and emotional distress. He wanted damages. I showed up with my lawyer and 2 folders thick with documentation. The judge barely let him finish before dismissing the whole thing with prejudice. Paul's face? White as the wall behind him. That same smugness he had when he asked, "What are you going to do? Cry about it?" Gone. He couldn't even look at me. I walked past him on the way out and said just loud enough for him to hear, "This is what happens when you steal from the wrong person." He didn't respond. Just kept his eyes on the floor. The company went further than I ever expected. They launched a full internal audit of project credit practices. Policies were rewritten. All team contributions now had to be logged and timestamped, with multiple backups stored across systems. My name? It's printed on the system I built. Literally. The front end now says System Core, G01_Greer Framework at the top of the admin screen. That's permanent. The new internal policy is called the Greer Protocol. I didn't ask for that. They gave it to me anyway. And the best part? A few months later, I got an invitation to speak at a Women in Tech event in Chicago. Then another one, this time for a keynote at a Midwest startup accelerator. People didn't just believe me, they respected me. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. Paul? Last I heard, he moved out of state. Tried freelancing, but every time someone Googled his name, my post came up. He changed the spelling of his last name on a new site, added an extra E, but it didn't help. He was dropped from 3 contracts in 6 months. One of the investors even warned other VC firms to stay away from him. They called him a reputational risk. His LinkedIn is gone. His consulting site is down. His name, as far as the industry is concerned, is radioactive. Sometimes people ask me if I feel bad for going that far. I don't. I gave him every chance to do the right thing. To credit me. To apologize. To stop lying. He doubled down every time. He thought he was untouchable. That no one would ever call him out. He was wrong. I didn't cry about it. I wrote everything down, and I made sure the right people saw it. That's the difference. And I'd do it again.